So after having presented my three principles for updating code, let's go back and review them. First, fry an onion. Start with something small just to get the juices flowing. Second, incremental changes. That is to code a little and then test a little. Make sure you haven't broken anything. And finally, steal like a banshee. Use code that already exists, because why rewrite it? So let's take a look at what's going on in this example code. First, we're grabbing the file to load and the file to save names. We're initializing the total votes. We're initializing values for the candidates. We are getting the winning candidate, the winning count, and the winning percentage, and we're giving them all initial values. Then we create a file open, and within that file being open, we create a file CSV reader. We strip off the header, and then for each row within the file, we increment the number of total votes. We grab the candidate name, and if the candidate name is not in a list of options that we're keeping track of, we add it to the options, and we update the dictionary that holds all of the votes for the candidate. And then we increment the candidate's votes by 1. Finally, we save the results to an output file. And here are the election results with the total votes. And then it says here county votes. These are actually the candidate votes. And it prints out this thing. Now notice what they're doing here is they're constructing a string with all of the output values. Then they're sending it to the screen with the print command. And then they're sending it to the text file for external storage. Then they're asking us to do it again. And then down here, we're saving the final candidate vote count to the text file. Now this is slightly different than up here, which is listing the total votes. Down here we're iterating across each candidate and listing out the candidate's values. So so for each candidate in the dictionary, we print the candidate, we get the candidate's votes from the dictionary based on their name. We calculate the vote percentage, and then we print that into a variable, and then that then goes both to the terminal and to the output file. And then finally, while we're in this loop, we are calculating which of these candidates actually won. And that is by keeping a running total of the winning count, right? So for each iteration, we check to see if the number of votes is greater than the winning count, and if the percentage is greater than the winning percentage. And if both of those things are true, then we add the votes to the winning count. We update the winning candidate with the candidate name and the winning percentage with the vote percentage. What's significant here is that this is going to increase or change every time we come across a candidate who's getting more votes. One thing I do notice that's a little perplexing, this "and" here really seems superfluous. And the reason I say that is that the vote percentage is calculated from the votes. And so keeping track of the winning percentage is something we need to do. We need to print that winning percentage ultimately. But at the same time, we don't need this comparison, right? So I also like to get rid of superfluous comments. These comments actually say what the code does. There's no need to print the winning candidate to the terminal. That we know that that's what it does, and save it to the, if you look at the code, that's exactly what that does. So there's no need for comments in these cases. Okay, so now that we reviewed the code, the concern I have about this code is that they're trying to get you to update the code from top to bottom without giving you a chance to really understand what's going on in here. So let's go back and look at this from the point of view of adding back the three requirements that they gave us. The voter turnout for each county. As I go through this, I'm going to start removing superfluous comments because they get in the way of us reading the code. Adder dependencies, well, no kidding. That's what the import statement does. We don't need a comment to let us know that. Add a variable to load a file from a path. We don't need that comment. Add a variable to save the file to the path. We don't need that comment. Initialize the voter counter. That's obvious. Candidate options and candidate votes. That's also obvious. So these are not helping us. Now, I want to run this program to make sure I haven't broken anything. And something's broken. Oh yeah, no such file or directory, resources election. My election results are in the current working directory. And let's look at the election analysis text. Yes. So this all looks pretty good. I'm satisfied that this program is not broken, and we're off to a good start. So let's solve this problem now of the voter turnout for each county. So it says create a county list and county votes dictionary. Okay. We did that before with the candidate. This is the exact same algorithm. So I'm going to steal like a banshee. I'm going to convert everything that says candidate to county. And I do that by highlighting or selecting the code, clicking the select change, and changing everything that says candidate to county. Okay, that's good. All right, have I broken anything? No. And I'm actually going to get rid of this comment because it doesn't help me. Track the winning candidate vote count and percentage. No kidding. So that's exactly what that says. This is, again, we don't care about the largest county right now. That's coming in the next requirement. Read the CSV and convert it to a list of dictionaries. Well, that's what this reader CSV does for us. So I don't need this comment. It only gets in my way. Read the header. Of course, that's exactly what the code says. Header equals next, so I don't need a comment for that. Now, for each row in the CSV file, read in header. Don't need that comment because that's exactly what this says. Add to the total count votes. Of course, that's what total counts equal total counts plus 1 means. In fact, I think that's a little verbose. I'm just going to make this plus equals 1. Get the candidate name from each row. Of course, that's exactly what that says. Now, I don't like this number 2 here. It doesn't really tell me what's going on. So I'm going to make this candidate column. And up here where I have the initialization, candidate column equals 2. And by the way, programmers like to tell the difference between constant values and variables. Constant values are, by convention, in uppercase. It's not enforced by the compiler. It's just the way that we write our code. So now it says extract the county name from each row. Well, that is something we need to do. So we'll do exactly the same code here, except I'll say county name, county column equals 1. I kind of want to test this to make sure it's doing what I think it's doing. So I'm temporarily going to put this print command in here as a debug command. And now I'm going to test my code. Okay, so that looks pretty good. It looks like it's doing what I expected it to do. It's grabbing all the county names. So I'm going to take that print statement out. Now, this is where it's getting in. Of course, we just did this. If the county does not match, if the candidate does not match the existing candidate, add it to the candidate list. This is not a terrible comment because it says what we're doing, whereas the code says how we're doing it. So I'm going to leave this in for now. If the candidate name is not in candidate options. Okay, so this is saying that we're going to keep a list of all the candidate names, and if the candidate name is not in that list, we're going to do the following things. So we're going to add the candidate name to the candidate list. Of course, that's exactly what this line of code says. We're appending the candidate name to candidate options, so I'm going to take that comment out. And begin tracking the candidate's voter count. That makes sense. That's exactly what this line of code says. And then it outdents and it adds the vote to the candidate's count. And that's exactly what that line of code says, so I don't need that comment. Now it turns out that this code for candidate is exactly the code that we need for the county. So I don't need a whole lot of code here for or comments here about the county. I can copy the code from the candidate, highlight it, select it rather. You can see that it's highlighted these candidates. I'm going to change those all to county. Boom. We're done. Okay, so let's now run this, make sure I haven't broken anything. So far, nothing's broken. I've calculated all the county votes. So let's go ahead and, I don't need that comment. I'm going to go down to the output part. So down here, they're telling me how to do that output. Write a for loop, retrieve the county, calculate the percentage, print the results, save the county votes, and then write an if statement to determine the winning county. That's a separate requirement. We're going to do that later. But these comments are not necessary. And if we look at the code that comes next, to save the final candidate vote to the text file, that is exactly the code that we're going to write for our county. Now it also computes the winner while we're doing that. I'm just going to go up here, and for now I just want to do the printout. So let's grab this code, steal like a banshee. Again, I'm going to highlight this. So let's see how that works. Okay, there's the county votes. I would like a line break. All right. So there's the candidate votes and the county votes, along with their percentages and their numbers. Okay, and so the last thing they did here was they printed out the winner based on the maximum. So that's actually a separate requirement. That's the voter turnout, and we're done with that. So let's review the code that we wrote. So at the top, we do our imports. We load our or create our file paths to load and save. We create some initial values for all of our variables. We have a couple constant variables for indexing. Track the largest county and voter turnout. We'll get to that. But right now what we do is we open our file, we create a file reader, we get the header, and then for each row in the CSV file, we increment the total votes, we get the candidate name, and we get the county name. And if the candidate does not match any existing candidates, we add them. And then if the county is not in the county options, we add that. Okay. Now that's the processing portion of our program. Now for the output portion, we're going to save the results to our text file. So we open the file with write. We get a string with the election results. We print it to the screen, and then we write it to the output file. Then for each county, we calculate the the vote percentage. We print out the results to the screen, and then we print out the results to the file. Then down here, now this one bit here about the winning votes, this is how we figure out who won and what the maximum was. We actually want to do the same thing for the counties, so we'll steal this code in a minute. Prints out the winning candidate, and we print that out. So our program is coming along pretty nicely. Let's go back to our, and now we want the county with the highest turnout. So to do that, this was done during the final printout loop, where they're printing out the candidate name. They grabbed the winning count. So let's do the same thing with our code. We'll copy that because we steal like a banshee. So we need to make sure that that has been set to winning count to 0 before we get started. And we're going to want to do that down below to reset it for our candidate. We want to change this to winning county. There we go. So Jefferson, and then Denver, and then Arapahoe. But the winner so far was Denver with the most. So you can see that that's working. And winner so far was Denver. So it looks like our conditional is working there. Print the county with the largest turnout to the terminal. Let's do that. So let's follow the pattern. There is a problem with my code, right? County with the most votes, Jefferson. County with the most votes, Denver. County with the most votes. So the problem is that my conditional here is embedded inside my for statement. So let's fix that. There we go. That looks good. Now let's make sure we went to our output file as well. Election results, total votes, county with the most votes. Soon we'll learn about functions and how to use functions, and that will clean up our code even more. Okay, so that concludes this demo. Again, the big idea here was first, I started with the code that they gave me. I did examine the code to see how it worked because I wanted to be able to not only augment it but steal from the best. I wanted to reuse some of the code. Secondly, we modified it step by step, taking one requirement at a time, not trying to solve all 3 requirements, write the entire program, but solve them one requirement at a time. And then finally, we steal like a banshee. We went back, we found code that worked for the candidate. The code for the county is almost identical, and so there's no need to rewrite it. We just copied and pasted it and changed the word candidate to county. In almost every case, that was sufficient. So, thanks for your attention. I'll see you in class.